Mr. Harsh Shringla, Foreign Secretary, Ministry of External Affairs, Government of India. Mr. Harshpati Singhania, President IMA and Vice Chairman and Managing Director JK Paper Limited. Ladies and gentlemen, a warm welcome to all. It is a pleasure to have you with us for the 48th session of IMA's Popular Leaders Speak series. Today, we are privileged to have India's Foreign Secretary, Mr. Harsh Shringla, with us as the chief guest, and we are delighted that he has agreed to address IMA. Mr. Shringla, as I was just saying, I recently discovered you're a fellow Stipendian, and it is really great to connect with you, I think, after almost 25 years. As you rightly said, we last met when you were posted in Paris. It is therefore a special pleasure and privilege for me to welcome you on the IMA platform today. We are keen to hear from you on a topic which is uppermost in people's minds: how to dismantle barriers to international travel and business and shape India's place and role in the post vaccine world order. Also, given what is happening in our neighborhood and taking advantage of your presence here today, time permitting, it would also be great to get your perspective on Indian government's response to the events in Afghanistan, which have the potential to destabilize India's security. Though you need no introduction, it gives me great pleasure to introduce you to our audience today. You have been India's Foreign Secretary since January 2020, and before that, for a year, you were India's ambassador to the US. Even in your short tenure in Washington, D.C., you made an amazing contribution to Prime Minister Modi's outreach to the US government, business, and Indian diaspora. The Howdy Modi rally that you organized in Houston would be remembered for a long time. Before being posted to Washington, D.C., you were India's High Commissioner to Bangladesh, where you brought the governments of the two countries closer on many contentious issues. You've also been India's ambassador to Thailand, and you have served India's missions in France, Vietnam, Israel, South Africa, and the UN. For a keen mountaineer that you are, no obstacle is too big for you in your pursuit of India's aims. It is a pleasure to have you and a very warm welcome. Mr. Singhania, always great to have you with us, especially for the Leaders Speak sessions. A very warm welcome to you. Ladies and gentlemen, while the COVID pandemic has made life and business extremely challenging, there's another pandemic spreading in the world. That is of putting arbitrary and sudden restrictions on entry of foreigners or even resident nationals in some cases. When the vaccine arrived, there was a hope for a freer movement across the world for business, education, family reasons, and just tourism. However, the appearance of the Delta variant in many parts of the world has belied these hopes. Once again, governments are trying to protect the citizens from potentially infected foreigners by restricting travel, even from countries with high levels of vaccination. The randomness of travel policy changes in many countries is making it difficult even to plan a foreign trip. Amid growing concern that COVID is spreading faster than the world's ability to vaccinate, India has an opportunity to be the world's savior. India has been the world's factory for conventional vaccines, and it has the potential to extend the leadership to COVID vaccines too. It is India's moment to step up and not let this opportunity to win the world's gratitude and admiration slip away. The events in Afghanistan have also created a challenge and an opportunity for India. The return of a theocratic regime in India's neighborhood, supported by a semi-theocratic regime adjacent to it, is a matter of concern for India. Besides addressing the security dimension of the regime change in Afghanistan, India also has a chance to bolster its soft power by helping those whose freedom and dignity are in danger, especially women. With these words, welcome once again, Mr. Shringla. It's wonderful to see you after a long time. It is now my pleasure to invite Mr. Singhania to conduct the session. Over to you.
Thank you, Rekha. Good evening, everybody. Harshvardhan Shringla ji, Foreign Secretary of India. Rekha, Director General, Rekha Sethi, Director General IMA, past presidents, members of IMA, and ladies and gentlemen. I have great pleasure today in welcoming Sri Harshvardhan ji Shringla, our Foreign Secretary, in this IMA Leader Speak session. Harshvardhan ji, this Leader Speak session is a series which IMA has, the All India Management Association, where we invite special guests to speak and leaders to speak on topics which would be of interest and to our members. So a very warm welcome this evening on a very important topic, as Rekha said, in terms of this post-vaccine world order of dismantling barriers to global business and travel. Now, as we all know, we have been through, well, there may have been many, but two major waves in India of COVID, which has disrupted life here. And across the globe, things have been completely unprecedented in terms of the change and turmoil that happened. Now, we are all wary of a possible third wave, but the whole issue is going to be with government's effort, how many people get vaccinated. And I'm happy that that pace is increasing now, including in the rural areas. And that is the only way when we will have a situation where even if we have a sort of third wave, the effects will be subdued and minimized. The government has opened up business, or rather, I would say normal life, and business is part of that. It's not opened up business in particular. And people are now going about their work and their personal and social lives. So it's very important that we are able to see how this issue will affect travel. Because one of the things that was taken for granted in our country and indeed globally was the whole issue of travel, whether domestic or international. But now we are suddenly confronted with a situation where if you want to travel, including in some parts of India, but more so overseas, and business and trade, of course, as you know, and tourism depend a lot on this. There are all kinds of regulations and restrictions. So, for example, today one needs to go to the UK, although it is now moved on to Amber, which is a little better. You still require home or hotel quarantine. And some other countries require Indians to be away for at least 14 days before they can enter, if they are into a green country, and before they can enter some countries, and a whole lot of other things. So it is also quite confusing and a bit tedious for people to travel. Now, India also has a situation where some of the vaccines that we have administered here, actually there were only two vaccines that were there, Covishield as well as Covaxin, which have not got recognition in countries like the UK and many other parts of the world. So even though many people would be double vaccinated, that alone does not offer the license to travel freely. So there are all these kinds of things. Some companies have, some countries have done traffic light codes. They have their own regulations, which adds to the complexity of this travel. So we would like to get the benefit of our foreign secretary's thoughts in terms of what we are planning to do as a nation in trying to ease this. Because, sir, as you know, commerce and trade are going to be backbones of the economy, and which provides a huge number of jobs. So while the government has done its bit in opening up the economy, it is essential that we have a large number of people working, and employment and commerce and trade are very, very important for this. So we'd like to hear from you about things like, what are your views on travel issues, how they will unfold, trade and business, how will this unfold in these times, whether by when do we anticipate getting recognition for the vaccines that have been administered in India? Also issues around, can there be some kind of a medical quote unquote passport or a pass, wherein if you have been vaccinated or you are considered safe for travel, that prevents quarantine issues. I know there are such things that are existing, but where are we on this? I know the International Chamber of Commerce has also been promoting something called an AOK pass, and many other countries are doing that. So while this is the thrust of today's discussion, and we'd like to hear from you, May I, with your permission, sir, pose a couple of other points which you may either take up later or in your remarks? There are other issues, since we have the benefit of having you, in terms of saying where does India feature in the global feeling of a China plus one nation, or a China plus one situation, I would say. What are the opportunities that we have from India? What could be some of the challenges? Our own relationship in the recent past has been a bit delicate with China. Where are we on that? And we have the latest crisis on our doorstep of the Afghanistan and Taliban matter. And particularly when China, Russia, and Pakistan have endorsed recognition or some sort of recognition to the regime. And there are many other issues. I mean, how do we build our economic interest in the Asian region, and so on. So we would be enriched by hearing your remarks, and you can in any which way help us understand this better. And thank you once again for being with us and readily accepting our invitation, Shringla-ji. And we look forward to hearing from you. Thank you, sir.
Well, thank you, Shri Harshpati Singhania ji, President of the All India Management Association, Rekha Sharma, DG of IMA, distinguished guests, dear friends, namaskar and good evening. At the very outset, let me thank Singhania ji and the All India Management Association for inviting me to address this August gathering. I was also very happy to reconnect with Rekha ji after all these years. I remember the last time we met, as you pointed out, was when I was the First Secretary Commercial in our embassy in Paris, and she was representing CII, and we drove down to Versailles for a meeting. And it's great to see you again and in this position. The All India Management Association has played a significant role in the development and enhancement of Indian business and in raising the bar of management practices within the country. Its contribution towards progressive advancement of management education is well known. The topic that you have selected for this evening, post-vaccine world order, dismantling barriers to global business and travel, is indeed a subject of great interest and relevance to all of us. And as Singhania ji mentioned in his introductory remarks, this is a very topical issue because it involves our vital interests. If we are to attain our very ambitious target of $300 billion in exports, we need to ensure that our business people have the freedom to travel, to meet their buyers and suppliers. Professionals have to travel, but it's also linked to the travel of students, travel of people to meet family members. I think it is in our interest to ensure that international travel is as smooth and as seamless as possible. The COVID pandemic, as we all know, has been the greatest shock to the international system since the Second World War. It is beyond doubt a health catastrophe that has delivered an enormous economic jolt, fundamentally changing the way we imagined societies, workplaces, and governance. The Honorable Prime Minister, Shri Narendra Modi ji, while speaking at the Raisina Dialogue earlier this year, had said, and I'm quoting him, "The COVID-19 pandemic has presented us an opportunity to reshape the world order, to reorient our thinking. We must create systems that address the problems of today and the challenges of tomorrow. And we must think of the entire humanity and not merely of those who are on our side of the borders," unquote. It is with this vision that the Ministry of External Affairs has been at the forefront of India's fight against the pandemic. Our role has evolved through various stages of the pandemic. We have learned lessons, adapted our approach, and fine-tuned our system as we went along. Over the last year and a half, the Ministry of External Affairs, like the rest of government and society, was faced with an unprecedented and, I would say, multifaceted challenge. And I want to just give briefly a sense of the scale of the challenge. We are a country with a global presence and wide-ranging interests. Securing those interests has always been an imperative for us. We have a diaspora which is the largest in the world, a diaspora whose well-being is one of our foremost responsibilities. We are also a large and growing economy, an economy that is interlinked with global capital, technology, and trade flows. One of our critical concerns has been, at a policy level, is to minimize the impact of disruptions to these flows. We are also a nation that has established a reputation as a pharmaceutical major, a net security provider. As a government and as a ministry, we had to build capacities overnight to respond to the pandemic, considering these multiple factors and in consonance with our global standing. Before I specifically spell out the issues the issue of barriers to global movement, I want to delve briefly into the various verticals through which we worked in our multi-pronged fight against COVID-19. Last year, just as countries were beginning to announce lockdowns to keep the virus at bay, the government responded quickly to the challenge and began working on bringing back lakhs of Indians stranded across the world. We also played a key role in evacuating foreign nationals who were stranded here in India. A dedicated 24/7 COVID cell was set up in the MEA to coordinate these activities, which continues to date and has evolved into what we call the Rapid Response Cell. During the second wave of the crisis, the ministry, which includes our network of Indian missions and posts abroad, sourced a wide array of critical medical supplies, medicines, and essential raw materials from abroad. And as you can imagine, these were very urgently required because obviously our health infrastructure was overwhelmed and the capacity that we had was inadequate to meet the demands of the time and of the situation. So we went into quickly sourcing life-saving oxygen concentrators, generators, equipment, but also liquid medical oxygen and essential medicines like remdesivir, tocilizumab, amphotericin B. Even in the most difficult of days, we did not forget, of course, that we are part of a global community. Our highest leadership was always mindful of the fact that responsible global citizens help each other in difficult times. India is a force for global good. Our role during the pandemic has proven that. Right from the beginning of the pandemic, India has been committed to sharing its experiences, expertise, and resources with the global community. We have been guided by our Prime Minister's vision of One Earth, One Health. I think many of our friends would know that we had sent medical supplies, pharmaceuticals to over 150 countries. Most of it was commercial, but some of it was Johnson aid. This is during the early phases of the pandemic. As our country was going through a difficult time during the second wave, we received, in turn, help from over 40 countries all over the world. In some ways, the response of our friends and partners was the result of the goodwill we created when we extended COVID-related medical assistance to partner countries. During the second wave, we also ramped up our own production, domestic capacity for manufacturing critical COVID-related items, and that includes medicines. With the abatement of the second wave, we are now supplying these items to partner countries that have seen a surge in COVID cases recently. For example, India provided a set of 150 ICU beds to Nepal last month. A DRDO-developed oxygen plant with a 1,000-liter capacity per minute has been established in Nepal. We are facilitating commercial supplies of liquid medical oxygen to Sri Lanka through Indian and Sri Lankan naval vessels. Close to 20 tons of medical equipment comprising oxygen cylinders, concentrators, flow meters, etc., as well as ambulances have been handed over to Bangladesh earlier this week. This is in addition to the facilitation of commercial exports of liquid medical oxygen to Bangladesh through special oxygen trains. Special assistance was also extended to Myanmar. Again, liquid medical oxygen, concentrators, etc. We are also supplying, very interestingly, to Indonesia, Vietnam, and Thailand, remdesivir. At their request, we are supplying and exporting remdesivir. We're exporting liquid medical oxygen to Southeast Asia. They are undergoing a crisis now, and I think we have been well placed to respond to their requirements. Caring, collaboration, and cooperation have been the hallmarks and the defining features of our response to the pandemic. And I believe it is also central to overcoming barriers to global business and travel. It is important to note that the mobility of people in the country is back to levels that it was prior to the second wave. We are slowly seeing some semblance of normalcy. It is only natural, therefore, that we start thinking about traveling again. I think this was a point brought out also in the initial remarks. Traveling for education, traveling for work, for family, and perhaps for leisure and tourism as well. We haven't reached that stage yet, but essential travel is definitely resuming. Overcoming barriers to movement is an area of vital importance to us as our students travel worldwide to study. Our business travelers are globetrotters and have operations in multiple countries. Foreign citizens also need to travel to India for a range of interests. As I said earlier, we are a global country and a global economy. Our diaspora, our youth, our economy, and India Inc. connects us to the world. It is no surprise that restoring normalcy to commerce and travel has become our key objective, and this is being done without letting our guard down. I would like to briefly dwell upon our efforts in this area and some of the outcomes that we have already seen. And I think it's important to put this in perspective because Singhania ji raised some very valid points and very valid concerns that the business community has in terms of the need to facilitate travel, and what I will say will try and put matters in some perspective and also give you a sense of where we are right now and what we're trying to do. With an improvement in the pandemic situation, fall in our caseload, we have very actively worked on removing travel restrictions and facilitating international travel for Indian citizens. We have been particularly concerned about students, stranded family members, and business persons. Normalization of global business and travel involves agreeing on a common global understanding on vaccination, certification, and travel modalities. Just this morning, I was discussing, we have an Indo-Pacific group, which is at the level of Vice Minister, Deputy Minister, Foreign Secretary, with a number of countries in the Indo-Pacific, and we had a very, very active dialogue, and we meet every couple of weeks virtually on what we can do to introduce a travel regime. And in fact, I'm preparing a paper which I'll circulate to these countries, the US, Australia, South Korea, Japan, Vietnam, for example, and try to get them to conform to certain understandings and arrangements that we would like to propose. But of course, so far, I think what we have to keep in mind is vaccination is not a prerequisite for allowing the entry of foreigners by most countries. Most countries allow foreigners based on a negative COVID-19 report. However, as vaccinations against COVID-19 is progressing across many countries, there is a growing sentiment to allow ease of restrictions, such as exemption from mandatory quarantine upon entry to vaccinated travelers. Let me briefly look at how various blocs and countries are regulating inbound movement and how this impacts on Indians. I also intend to update you on our efforts to ease global travel for Indian citizens. Some of you may already be aware that the European Union adopted the EU Digital COVID Certificate, also commonly known as the Green Pass. This aims to facilitate free movement during the COVID-19 pandemic. It allows people who are vaccinated with European, what we call the European Medicines Agency, the EMA, authorized vaccines to be exempted from travel restrictions within the EU. At the same time, the EU provides flexibility to their member states, to also accept vaccines that have been authorized at the national level or by WHO. So what we have done is that we have individually engaged EU member states on this matter, and that we've also made it very clear right from the beginning that we will follow a reciprocal policy for the entry of foreign nationals into India. In other words, if you give us entry based on our vaccine, we will also give you a similar facility. If not, then obviously we will also put similar restrictions on your citizens that are coming into India. During my visit to the UK last month, I personally raised concerns regarding the continued inclusion of India in UK's red list with my counterparts. As many of you know, the UK also moved India from the red list to the amber list in early this month. We formally raised the issue of non-inclusion of India in EU's Green Pass mechanism and sought reciprocity. I've mentioned this. We have also said that for Indians vaccinated with Covishield and Covaxin, they should accept that. and accept vaccination certificates issued through our CoWIN portal. I'm happy to inform members of IMA that as a result of our efforts, 17 EU member states and Switzerland have recognized Covishield and subsequently lifted blanket travel bans on India, permitting entry of students and other essential travelers from India. Several countries have also agreed to accept travelers who are vaccinated by any nationally approved vaccines. This includes Estonia and Romania. In other words, they have recognized Covaxin also. France and Germany are currently issuing all categories of visas, including for tourism, if one is vaccinated with Covishield. Even when restrictions were at their highest, the Ministry of External Affairs actively facilitated the travel of our Olympic contenders for participating in qualifying tournaments and for training in Europe. I'm glad to note that this includes our young Olympic gold medalist, Neeraj Chopra. There have also been multilateral discussions, including under the aegis of the International Civil Aviation Organization, on COVID-19 vaccination certificates, but no multilateral arrangements, and I repeat, no arrangements have been concluded to date. India has been an integral part of the ongoing discussions. As you are aware, India's vaccination drive has been enabled by our indigenous technological platform, CoWIN, which also issues and verifies national vaccination certificates. We are engaging with various countries to arrive on an understanding on the mutual recognition of vaccination certificates on a bilateral basis. Why a mutual recognition of vaccination certification is because we will keep adding new vaccines to our repertoire. We have got Sputnik, tomorrow we'll get Janssen, after that we'll get some other vaccine. So instead of each time having to get these vaccines recognized, we are saying you recognize our national certification, we'll recognize your certification. We are also offering CoWIN as an open source software to partner countries to deal with their health-related challenges. India recently organized a CoWIN global conclave to share its experience. This was attended by 400 representatives of over 140 countries. Several countries around the globe have shown an interest in acquiring this platform, which we are offering. There have been questions about the global acceptability of Indian vaccines. As you know, the WHO has already listed Covishield for emergency use, and a large number of countries have given emergency use authorization to Covishield. Covaxin has also been given emergency use authorizations in nearly a dozen countries. As per the information with our ministry, there are 11 countries. I won't go into naming each country, but 11 countries which have recognized Covaxin. And the application for WHO approval for emergency use for Covaxin is under process. We understand that this will come quite soon, as early as next month. And once it comes through, this will be supplemented by bilateral efforts for recognition of Covaxin to further augment the ease of travel of our citizens. I would like to stress here that we have been steadfast in working towards negotiating reductions in travel restrictions and to ensure that Indians carry on international travel. We have been making these efforts right from the early days of the pandemic. Many of us will recall the Vande Bharat mission, which commenced in May last year to bring back Indians in a phased manner. The Vande Bharat mission has been by far the largest and most complex exercise ever undertaken by the government for the repatriation of Indian nationals stranded abroad. It is an example of the whole of government approach involving close coordination between several ministries, agencies, and state governments. And despite the massive logistical complexities involved, particularly because of the global lockdowns that were in progress, we have brought back 71 lakh passengers to India through 88,000 flights from more than 100 countries. Out of the 71 lakh returnees, 5 lakh have entered India by land from our neighbors. We've also facilitated the travel of 57 lakh passengers from India to various foreign countries through 87,600 outbound flights. The situation has improved since then due to our sustained efforts and engagement. India now has air bubble arrangements with 28 countries. These air bubbles are aimed at restarting commercial passenger services in the absence of regular international flights due to the pandemic. The arrangement is reciprocal in nature, which essentially means that airlines from both countries enjoy similar benefits. Our highest priority is to facilitate the travel of our students, who have secured admission for higher education to various universities and colleges abroad. These students act as a bridge between us and the rest of the world, and it is our endeavor to ensure that they are able to enjoy a holistic international education experience. With respect to Western Europe, I'm happy to share that all major destination countries are now allowing travel of our students and are processing their visas on a priority basis. Restrictions on our students for traveling to the UK, Ireland, Germany, Netherlands, Belgium, and Luxembourg have been removed. We are also closely engaged with the US administration on all issues regarding the mobility of Indian professionals, students, and those requiring to travel to the US. The issue of travel restrictions has been taken up at very senior levels with the US and Canada. The US Embassy is now issuing student visas, and we have repeatedly asked both countries to resume travel for all categories of work permit holders, researchers, family members, and normal business travelers. Australia is another major destination for our students, and the concerns of Indian students enrolled in Australian educational institutions and unable to travel have been raised with the concerned Australian authorities. We have emphasized the need for early return of these students to their campuses. We are also cognizant of the delays faced by our students in obtaining visa appointments with some countries, and have asked concerned foreign missions here to increase visa slots and expedite visa processing. The Gulf region is a major destination for our expatriates. We have continuously engaged with the leadership of the Gulf countries on COVID-19 related cooperation. The emphasis has been to alleviate problems faced by the Indian community in the Gulf due to the pandemic. We have negotiated air bubble arrangements with UAE, Qatar, Kuwait, Oman, and Bahrain. Several lakhs of people have traveled to the Gulf for taking up jobs and for business, including tourism and to meet family members. The second wave of the pandemic, of course, posed problems as many Gulf countries placed restrictions on travel from India from April onwards. However, these restrictions are also gradually being removed. Qatar and Bahrain have been allowing the return of Indian nationals who have resident visas. Qatar has also started allowing Indian nationals with visit visas to travel to the country. This month, UAE and Kuwait have begun allowing Indian nationals having resident visas to come back following their vaccination, testing, and quarantine guidelines. We are expecting a further easing of restrictions, which will benefit our nationals. As far as the approval of vaccinations by Gulf countries are concerned, many do recognize Covishield. Internally, we remain sensitive to the requirements of Indian citizens for foreign travel. For facilitating international travel of interested citizens, including students, government has approved that the second dose of the Covishield vaccine for them can be administered at a gap of 28 days instead of the regulatory, 14 to 16 weeks. I would like to sum up by underscoring the point that the COVID-19 pandemic is unprecedented in human history. Despite the uncertainties inherent in this evolving pandemic, our efforts remain focused on easing the travel and improving the employment opportunities for Indian citizens abroad. These challenges, of course, are numerous, and the possibility of dangerous and highly contagious variants of coronavirus spreading across the world cannot be ruled out. Some countries have already imposed fresh rounds of lockdowns. I was just talking to our counterparts from Vietnam, from South Korea, Japan, and we find that Southeast Asia is very badly affected by the recent wave of the pandemic. Regulating agencies of different countries continue to decide on vaccines and their certification. The post-vaccine world would still not be a post-pandemic world. It has started to emerge that the world would have to live with the coronavirus for some more time. This would mean continuous need for medical management of the virus. Our students and medical professionals will have to find and then mainstream innovation, affordable and safe solutions to counter the virus. Having said that, let me assure you that I have been, all of us have been personally monitoring and spearheading efforts to ensure that Indians can once again travel smoothly. For a country like India, which is embedded so deeply within the larger global community, this is the only way forward. The government of India is fully committed to deal with these challenges. I think Singhania ji had raised a few questions which is not linked to the topic that we have in hand. One of them, of course, was what we call, what he referred to as China plus one, and also on Afghanistan. I think Afghanistan we could take separately, but the issue really is that we are all focused on the importance of resilient supply chains. We've all found in the COVID pandemic that actually we are very dependent on some countries for our raw materials, for very vital ingredients that go into our industries. If you take the health industry, for example, in pharmaceuticals, the API comes largely from one country. If you look at even N95 masks, some of the a very important component, the nozzle comes from one country. We have to make sure that we have a more Atmanirbhar industry, self-dependent industry. We have to make sure that we are tying up with our partners across the world to have more secure, sustainable, reliable supply chains. That is why we're talking to Japan and Australia on the one hand, the United States and Europe on the other. I think industry has to look at the dependence and the reliability of supply chains in times of crisis, and reduce the over dependency on any one country or group of countries. In that context, of course, I have to say that it is obviously not possible to do it immediately because the global system is so oriented. But I think from our conversations with a lot of our partners, there is a realization of the seriousness of the nature of global trade and global interdependencies. And I think you will be finding that slowly but surely there will be course corrections and adjustments. And I think this is something that all of us have to really give very serious thought to. So let me once again thank the All India Management Association.
Sir, I come to the close of this session. On this very last point, I must reassure you one thing, that in a way that our own company, in some of our projects, maybe small amounts, but we have imported and we continue to, the equipment that was ordered in the past is coming and from China. So it is not as if, doors are shut and Indian business is inconvenienced. So I want to reassure you that. Sir, ladies and gentlemen, as you would have seen, our Foreign Secretary, Harshvardhan Shringla has very candidly answered questions. Sorry, sir, if we have asked some questions which are sensitive, because for no fault of anybody, but the MEA always is in a very sensitive zone. If you say something, frankly, there can be issues and there can be other stuff. But if otherwise, also it is important to reassure the citizens of India about what the realities are. So thank you very much, sir, first of all, for participating at short notice, as well as a very comprehensive overview on the realities of travel and how they will unfold with COVID, as well as several other questions regarding this. Also, ladies and gentlemen, you would have noticed that our Foreign Secretary has had facts and figures right at his fingertips. So he was not looking for any data on a piece of paper. It is all there. So which shows how actively and keenly and clear-headed he is about all of this. So Shringla, thank you very much. You would also be happy to know that there were about 600 odd people plus who were listening to you through various platforms, which is a very large attendance, and the remarks in the chat box are all plaudits for you, and not to just make you feel good, but genuinely they feel this was a very, very informative session. So thank you. And Harshvardhanji, if I may just add that I have had the pleasure of knowing you over various years, and we have met in foreign lands, traveled together on various things. So thank you personally for this opportunity. Rekha, any concluding formalities from your end?
Well, I think you said it all. If you see the chat box, it really says everything. I think we've got some wonderful comments from our members. I think it has been a very, very informative and useful session. And thank you so much for doing this for IMA. And wonderful to reconnect. Thank you so much.